Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. Sitting in for Pinky Webb, I'm Ria Tanwat Cotrillo. Today on the program, the controversial Maharlika Investment Fund bill hurdles the Senate. Critics raise transparency issues and questions on fund sources if President Bongbong Marcos signs the bill into law. Gabriela Party List Representative Arlene Brosas joins us live. The Senate explicitly prohibited GSIS and SSS from investing in the Maharlika Investment Corporation. But are there enough safeguards to protect state-run pension funds? Former Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas Governor Diwa Guinigundo tells us more later on in the show. A little over a week after President Bongbong Marcos certified it as urgent, the Senate bill creating the controversial Maharlika Investment Fund hurdles the chamber. Senators approved the measure on second and third reading early Wednesday after nearly 12 hours of debates and amendments. Only opposition Senator Risa Ontiveros voted against the bill, while Senator Nancy Binay abstained. Minority Leader Coco Pimentel and Senators Amy Marcos and Cheese Escudero were not present during the voting.
At 2:32 a.m. in the morning, we have 19 affirmative votes, 1 negative vote, 1 abstention. Senate Bill number 2020 is approved on third reading. Congratulations.
The Senate accepted Senator Raffy Tulfo's proposed amendment to explicitly prohibit the GSIS, SSS, PhilHealth, Pag-ibig, OWA, and the Philippine Veterans Affairs Office from investing in the Maharlika Investment Corporation.
It prohibits government social welfare entities such as SSS, GSIS, PhilHealth, Pag-ibig, OWA Fund, and Philippine Veterans Affairs Office Fund from buying shares in the Maharlika Investment Corporations, which are supposed to be allocated for the benefit of its contributors, the Filipino people.
Congress may adopt the Senate version, or a bicameral conference committee can be called to reconcile conflicting provisions with the House bill before the proposal can be submitted to Malacanang. The House measure was approved last December. Now let's go straight to the source of the story, former Bangko Sentral Deputy Governor Diwa Guinigundo. Sir, good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Ria, for having me here.
All right, sir. Now this controversial Maharlika Investment Fund bill. We want to get your thoughts on this at this moment, and with you as someone who's familiar with sovereign wealth funds, do you believe that there is indeed an urgent need for the Philippines to have a fund such as this?
Well, I believe that sovereign wealth funds are very useful. They are a very good way of investing surplus funds or windfall profits, say from sale of gold, sale of diamonds, or even oil or gas. But the problem is this: we don't have surplus funds. And therefore, for the Maharlika Investment Fund to be called the Sovereign Wealth Fund is a misnomer. A Maharlika Investment Fund, as it was approved by the Senate on the second and third reading, actually relies on public money. The seed fund will be coming from the Land Bank and the DBP. That's 50 billion and 25 billion, or 75 billion. The national government will have to share 50 billion, and that will come from the dividends of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. Instead of using the dividends of the central bank to recapitalize itself, because the original capitalization of the central bank stood at only 50 billion. But the new charter, the revised charter of the BSP, provided for a 200 billion peso capitalization. So you have public money as the source of funding the Maharlika Investment Fund. But what is the trade-off? The trade-off is all of this public money is supposed to be part of public revenues to support the national budget. So instead of using this for infrastructure, social and economic services like education, medical facilities, and other important economic and social services, this will be used to fund the Maharlika. And as a result, and this is the issue, the national government will be forced either to impose a higher level of taxes or borrow funds from abroad or from domestic capital markets or do both. So instead of addressing and mitigating the problems of high fiscal deficit and increasing level of public debt, this Maharlika Investment Fund may in fact worsen it.
Sir, I also want to touch on the timing of the bill. As many or the opposition lawmakers have said, there are many other urgent needs that the country has. What do you think about the timing of this Maharlika Investment Fund proposal, given everything that is happening in the country and given the present economic climate?
I think the timing is quite off. As I said, an investment fund or a Maharlika sovereign wealth fund will be good if we have surplus funds. The problem is we don't have any. Okay? And the certification of this bill as urgent, I think, is also counterintuitive in the sense that precisely the global economy is more volatile and more uncertain. This is not the time to invest outside the Philippines. Out there, you have more risks. Some of the banks in the US and even in Switzerland are breaking down. This is not the time to do it. The IMF, in fact, described the geopolitical situation as uncertain, volatile, and fragmented. This is not the time. The risks are higher today, even here in the Philippines. The trade-off is quite significant. We need more funds for infrastructure. We need more funds for quality education. We need more funds to support more hospital beds. We need more funds for a higher level of digitalization, to improve our level of competitiveness in the external markets. So, to me, the timing is quite off.
Right. Now, the bill, as we know, it's already hurdled the Senate despite appeals from other lawmakers that they still need more time to study the bill or improve it. What do you think, sir, are the long-term repercussions of this bill being rushed?
Well, it was good that the Senate decided to drop SSS and GSIS because the original House bill approved by the House of Representatives contained a very explicit prohibition for the use of SSS and GSIS funds. In the original Senate bill, before Senate Bill 6070 was approved by the Senate, it was also reflected the prohibition against the use of SSS and GSIS and other pension funds. But in 6070, Senate Bill 6070, there was this provision on Senate Bill 6070, Section 12, Article 3, that these GFIs and GOCCs, and that would include some of these pension funds, may invest. It's good that the Senate decided to drop that and explicitly prohibit the use of SSS and GSIS funds to fund the Maharlika Investment Fund. But the problem is this. Number one, they did not drop the issue of using the dividends of the BSP to fund the national government share, 50 billion, in the Maharlika Investment Fund. The problem is this. The BSP is supposed to be recapitalized pursuant to the revised charter, the revised charter of the BSP. It is needed because the original capitalization of the BSP is 50 billion. I mean, the economy has grown, the financial system has expanded, so you need a central bank that is more highly capitalized so that we would be able to promote price stability and financial stability when the situation gets worse and the need for central bank intervention is necessary. You need more funds, you need more resources for the BSP. That was not done. Instead, these dividends will be transferred, will be earmarked for funding the Maharlika Investment Fund. Land Bank and the DBP will be used for funding the seed fund of the Maharlika Investment Fund. They have their own investment and lending operations. Such a decision on the part of the Senate might also compromise the viability of these two government financial institutions. Instead of being able to lend and invest based on their investment and lending strategies and policies, these resources will be earmarked and assigned to the Maharlika Investment Fund. It is also important to note that the Maharlika Investment Fund, by earmarking all of this public money, actually institutionalizes, bypassing Congress, and it could compromise the power of Congress over the purse. Because normally, when you have all of this public money, this is used for funding the national budget. And the Congress exerts or exercises due diligence in the choice of projects to be funded by the national budget. This is not going to be the case. What is going to happen is that some of this public money that would have been used to fund the national budget will be transferred to the Maharlika Investment Fund. And the use of this public money will be assigned to an appointed board of directors and management, including the advisory board. So instead of Congress doing now the management of the budget and the exercise of the power over the purse, it's now going to be done by the Maharlika Investment Fund. That's not going to be a good arrangement in a democracy.
Right, so you're talking about public money that will be used in a way that is not decided upon by Congress. Last question before we go to a break, sir. Why would Congress do this? Why would they basically relinquish some of their power of the purse?
Well, probably they have their own reason, of which I'm not privy to, Ria. But I guess it is important that they realize that the trade-off is quite important. What is the trade-off? The trade-off is using public money, okay, that could have been used to fund economic and social services. And these are urgent. Poverty is still high. Unemployment is still a challenge. Inflation is also quite persistently high. Versus investing all of this public money to infrastructure, to cash, to bank deposit, etc. It's no different from a family, where you have a certain fund that should be used for the matriculation of your children, or hospitalization of your wife, or the repair of your house. But instead of doing this and addressing these very urgent issues of the family, you would rather use the money to invest. And the problem of investment is this: it is quite risky, number one. Number two, when you invest, the gestation period, especially when you do invest in infrastructure, it will take time. And time is of the essence when you're talking of family issues, like education of the children, medical treatment, etc. So I think Congress would really need more time to really study this, especially in the bicameral conference, when the House and the Senate would try to reconcile the differences between the two versions. I think they need to realize this important trade-off.
All right, sir, we do need to take a short break. Do stay with us. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. You're You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Ria Tanwat Cotrillo. Our source today, former Bangko Sentral Deputy Governor Diwa Guinigundo. Sir, welcome back to the program. Now, Senator Win Gatchalian, he proposed to drop BSP dividends as one of the sources of the Maharlika Investment Corporation's capital. But Senator Villar rejected this, and that was supported by Senate President Mig Zubiri. Talk to us a little bit about what will the impact be on ordinary Filipinos with the BSP having to put its dividends into the Maharlika Fund?
We need a strong central bank. We need a strong BSP. I think there is no debate in terms of how serious is our economic challenges today. And the central bank plays a very important role in stabilizing the macroeconomy. It is the mandate of the central bank to keep prices stable. So when it is necessary and we need to mop up liquidity, that will cost money. We need money to be able to mop up extra liquidity from the market. Second, when the situation gets worse and some of the banks are affected, you need money again to bail out distressed financial institutions. But if the central bank is weak in terms of its financial statement and the balance sheet, then it will have difficulty delivering on its mandate of price stability and banking stability. Now, what is that to ordinary people? Well, we have seen how prices have gone up in terms of rice, onion, and even ordinary table salt. Now, if the central bank needs to intervene in the financial market, but the central bank is challenged by a weak capital base, then we will have a problem. If the banks are not stable and we need some intervention to provide assistance and the financial support to some of these banks, but the BSP is not strong enough because the capitalization of the BSP is far from complete, then we will have problems. We don't want to see the banking system getting shaky again, the way we used to see it in the 1980s and early 1990s. It is important that while at present the central bank is healthy and robust, it is important not only to maintain it, but to further strengthen it. We don't know what is going to happen tomorrow or the following year. It is important that we get to be more risk conscious and prepare the central bank for any eventuality.
You mentioned earlier, sir, that with the creation of the Maharlika Fund and the economic climate being as it is today, the national government might be forced to perhaps increase taxes, borrow or increase interest rates. So do you see that happening? And again, how would that affect ordinary Filipinos?
Well, under the one single fund concept, Ria, whatever public money is earmarked for the Maharlika Investment Fund and away from the national budget, the national government will have to compensate for that. And to be able to do that, the national government will have to borrow or to impose higher taxes or more taxes. There's no other way. The other way, of course, is to reduce public spending. But that's a no-no. We want to make sure that public spending promotes economic growth. So we don't want to cut back on our spending, especially on infrastructure and social services. So the only way by which we can maintain the target of the national government on growth and public finance is really to increase borrowing or to impose new or higher taxes. And that's very important to the ordinary people. We don't want to see another increase in taxes. We don't want to see higher borrowings because in the final analysis, all of us would have to pay it back as taxpayers in this country.
Sir, thank you very much for speaking with us here on The Source. We do appreciate your expertise. That was former Bangko Sentral Deputy Governor Diwa Guinigundo. And we will be taking a short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. I'm Ria Tanwatco Trillo. Our source today is Congresswoman Arlene Brosas. Congresswoman, welcome to The Source. Congresswoman, of course, is from the Gabriela party list. First, ma'am, we would like to get your reaction to the Senate passing the Maharlika Investment Fund bill.
Yes, thank you, Ria. Yung pagkakapasa ng Maharlika Investment Fund sa Senado ay mariin po namin yan talagang tinututulan. Actually, hanggang ngayon po, lahat ng reasons, no? All of the reasons na hindi yan napapanahon, na hindi dapat ganyan yung nilalaman, no, ng Maharlika Investment Fund, hanggang ngayon ay yun pa rin ang aming reason kung bakit hindi dapat ito ginagawa ngayon sa kasalukuyan at hindi dapat natin to pinagtutuunan or mas pinagtutuunan ng pansin.
Now, some senators, ma'am, proposed amendments that were accepted by the rest, namely Senator Tulfo proposed the amendment to explicitly prohibit GSIS, SSS, PhilHealth, Pag-ibig, OWA, and the Philippine Veterans Affairs Office from investing into the proposed fund. So kung baga natanggal na yung mga pension funds as a source of funding, do you think these amendments have made the bill easier to accept?
No, actually, yung amendments that was introduced in the Senate version that would prohibit SSS and GSIS from investing in Maharlika is not enough, no? It will not quell the fears and concerns of our people. We have seen how they introduced the provision in the upper chamber and they can do it again. Di ba? Pwede ibalik lang nila yon eh. So ngayong bicameral, pwede nilang ibalik ulit yon sa conference committee. So kailangan pagbantayan talaga ng taong bayan itong mga amendments na ito. Pero overall, kung iisipin natin, sasabihin kasi it will be good, no, na yung SSS and GSIS ay wala na, pero yung overall na public resources pa rin yung gagamitin, and we have concerns on the GOCC funds also, which currently amounts to 10 trillion, ay pwede pa rin magamit for initial capitalization. Di ba? Parang hindi pa rin yun pwede at hindi pa rin tayo dapat pumayag doon. So overall, hindi natin ito gusto.
All right, ma'am. Now, another concern on the Senate bill is the proposed sources of funding. That's 125 billion pesos na manggagaling sa Land Bank of the Philippines, Development Bank of the Philippines, and the national government. Your thoughts on that po?
Yes, actually ito po yung sinasabi natin kanina, no. I've heard BSP governor, previous BSP governor, about this, and I agree totally with him. Kasi bakit hindi dapat natin ginagamit na investment fund yung resources natin from BSP, from Land Bank, no, in the hopes of generating revenues.
All right, Congresswoman, are you there?
It rose to 5-month high of 5.74 billion US dollars, no? So ibig sabihin, wala talaga tayong pag-uusapan na i-invest kung ganito yung condition ng ating bansa. Tapos imagine na ang mangyayari dito kapag nagkaroon ng losses ultimately and nag-fail, no? Yung mga investments na ito, the Filipino people will suffer. Tayo ang magbabayad. So, nakakabahala talaga ito, no? Yung usapin na yung gagamitin na pondo, public resources natin, from BSP, from Land Bank, etc. So, how can they do this, di ba? At this point of time?
Now, another major concern, Congresswoman, about this fund is the independence of the board. This board will be making decisions about how public money is spent, but we don't even really know at this point kung, who will be choosing them or how they will be chosen. Can you tell us your thoughts on that?
Yes, basically ito pong nakakabahala to, no? Kasi sabi nga namin parang again, hindi na tayo natuto sa before na mga experiences natin na ang public resources ay maaaring maging i-plunder, no, ng kung sino man, ano? At yung pag-state ng Article 3, Section 6 on the Senate Bill 2020, ito pong pinag-uusapan, sinasabi na ang Department of Finance, Privatization and Management Office o DOF-PMO will be given the power to identify properties, real and personal under dito sa MIF. Ito po ay magpapave talaga ng way, no, para sa tingin namin would allow undetected money laundering to proliferate. At yun po, no, yung sinasabi natin na kapag yung board, yung makapangyarihan, they can do anything with the public resources na meron tayo. Ibig sabihin, they have more power than the Congress. Ano? Kiniklip talaga nila yung power ng Congress. They can decide anything doon sa public resources at hindi natin yung ginagawa. This is the first time na gagawin yun.
That is a major concern. Lastly, Congresswoman, you're saying, there are some provisions that were removed. They could put those back in the BICAM. We don't know yet. Is there any other way to stop the MIF?
Yes, of course. If the people doesn't want it, talagang kailangan po natin harangan in any form na kaya natin itong usapin na ito. Just like before, no, when the public pressure was really parang active, no, yung mga tao dito sa pagsasabi kung ano ang pagtingin nila dito. We need that more. Kailangan natin ng participation ng ating mga kababayan ngayon para maintindihan na this is the worst time, no, na ginagawa itong MIF. Tapos imbis na yung asikasuhin ng government ngayon is to generate revenues for the socio-economic programs na kailangan natin. Halimbawa, mag-impose tayo ng wealth tax sa mga Filipino billionaires. Pwede naman natin gawin yun di ba? Kung kailangan natin ng pondo. Tapos tapos yung exercising the direct control and ownership ng ating mga natural gas project o power assets. Di ba mas maaapektuhan yun? Baka yun pa nga ang gawin nilang ipondo nila for this MIF. Kaya nakakabahala po siya.
Right, ma'am, thank you so much for spending part of your morning with us. That was Gabriela Party List Representative Arlene Brosas. And thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Ria Tanwat Cotrillo. You're watching CNN Philippines.